Hello, welcome to my live video. I'm just going to talk through why am I not losing weight. So I asked, you voted, and this is what you wanted to hear about. Now, one disclaimer before we kick off, it's not all about weight. So bearing in mind that what you're looking for is to get in better shape. So that will include, chances are, gaining a little bit of muscle, or maybe a lot of muscle depending on your goals, and decreasing fat. So it's not just about how much you weigh. People of the same weight can look vastly different, so don't rely on the scales too much. That said, it's kind of a convenient way of getting across a point. So why might you be not losing weight? For a lot of people, they can misjudge their portion sizes. So you might think, oh, I've got a healthy meal here, I'm really doing well, and the meal size is just too big. It's easy to do. You can try having a bit of a smaller plate, just planning your meals, being a little bit more conscious about what you're eating. The other thing is, if the overall meal size is okay, you could be having too much of healthy foods that maybe high in fat, say, or maybe having too much on the carbohydrates versus protein. So you have to get that balance right. So what I would most recommend is a low GL diet, which is like half your plate is vegetables, and about a quarter is protein, and a quarter is your complex carbohydrates. So that's my recommendation. But keep an eye on the overall portion sizes. Try reducing the amount that you eat in each meal. Hey, Darren. Hey, Antonello. And hi, Susie. Good to see you guys here. Darren, it's late there. I'm surprised. I love it when you're on my lives, but I didn't expect you to be up this late. So I expect most of the London crowd will be catching this on a replay. Okay, so we've got the portion sizes and overeating on healthy foods. Nuts are another common... Oh, 1 a.m. Oh, yes, because it's 2 p.m. here. Yeah, of course. 1 a.m. is not too bad. 2 a.m. might be a bit of a stretch. Nuts are a common one as well. We think, oh, yeah, they're healthy. And then before you know it, the whole bag's gone. So with nuts, with almonds, like you want only 10 to 12, depending on your size, no more. And that's each day. So just easy on the nuts. They're great to have, but yeah, don't have a whole bag. It won't turn out well for you, especially when you have it with dried fruit. Dried fruit is, really high in carbohydrates and kind of a bit of a sugar hit for your body, so not ideal. And if you are wanting to drop a bit of weight, just don't have dried fruit. Have it fresh. You'll feel more satisfied. You'll get more water in. It's better for everybody. Okay, the other thing is you could be relying on your exercise and not focusing on the food. Don't fall into this trap. Hello, Holly. Don't fall into this trap, because you have to start with the food first. And for a lot of people, they might say, oh, okay, I'm gonna exercise every weekday before work, and this is what I'm gonna do for my meal plan. But oh, I've got an early meeting, so I won't exercise on that day. And oh, I was out late last night, and so I won't exercise on that day. And you wind up not doing the exercise, but you're still eating the same food as if you were. So don't rely on the exercise. It's important to exercise because you want to be strong, you want to be healthy, you want to increase your muscle mass, because the more muscle you have on your body, the more fat you naturally burn. It's just better all around. But and bearing in mind that for women, you need to lift really heavy weights. You're not going to bulk up. You don't have enough testosterone to bulk up, and you'd have to eat a hell of a lot, as well as lifting very heavy weights for very low reps. There's a lot involved in gaining muscle, and you're not going to bulk up. What will happen if you lift very heavy weights for about 12 to 15 reps is that your body will become much leaner and have a better shape. So I recommend that over just excessive cardio, which will just hurt your joints and make you angry. Unless you love a good walk. If you love a good brisk walk, that works well also. I'm kind of spending a bit of time on exercise here. But I will say one other thing about exercise before I move on to the next point. Sometimes it's a good idea to just focus on the food and losing weight before you are too hard on yourself about how much you're exercising. You'll feel better if you lose a little bit of weight, and then maybe you feel more like going to the gym and hanging out with other exercise peeps. Okay, so that's number 2. We had portion sizes, exercise, relying on exercise rather. Okay, now the third thing is if you're not sleeping enough. Now this is really, 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 really important. Cortisol. If you don't sleep enough, your cortisol is highly likely to be much higher. Oh, thanks, Darren. It's going to be much higher. If you have lots of caffeine, your cortisol will be higher. If your sleep is poor quality, also. If your cortisol is high, also if you're stressed throughout the day, if your cortisol is high, it's going to be harder for you to lose weight. You're going to be more likely to be carrying body fat around the midsection, which is the unhealthy place to carry it. It's competing with your sex hormones, especially would be concerned with it competing with your testosterone. And women need testosterone as well. Men also have estrogen, and we also have testosterone. And you need a good balance of your sex hormones in order to lose weight. Now, if you've got too much cholesterol in your body, that competes with the production of your sex hormones. So it's going to throw things out of balance. And even if you're doing everything else right, if your sleep isn't on point, you can struggle to lose weight. So don't underestimate the importance of it, please. The other thing I will say about sleep is that when you go to sleep, your leptin hormone levels raise, which tells you that you're full because you don't need to eat while you're sleeping. And your ghrelin hormone, which tells you that you're hungry, comes down. Okay, so if you're not sleeping properly, then your body is going to be feeling hungry. It's going to be so much harder to eat anything healthy, even if you've prepped it, even if you've been to the gym and you're doing all the other things you should be. Because when you get hangry, it's not pretty. Okay, so sleep is one of the most important things that I stress with my clients, that and hydration, and yeah, don't underestimate it. Okay, so speaking of hydration, next point I'd like to say is don't drink your calories. Please don't have sugary drinks because it adds up too quickly. And if you're going to, have something, and I don't calorie count, but it's one way to measure things. But sugary drinks, it's just such a waste of calories. Like if you could have, a super tiny but really delicious dessert, it's going to be so much more fun than just a sugary drink. Like make it count. The other thing is alcohol, and I've talked about this before. And some of you mentioned that you were surprised that alcohol will be burnt off first before your body even starts burning off sugar and anything else that you've ingested. So like if weight loss is a priority for you, alcohol needs to come down. It needs to come down a lot, and it needs to come down fast, because you're kidding yourself if you think you can carry on drinking at the same levels, whether that's just, even if it's just Friday and Saturday night, and lose weight. One of the most important things you can do is to cut the alcohol out. So please don't underestimate that. If you have an event on, if you've got something coming up and you're going to want to have perhaps a glass or two, try and nurse that glass. Just try and make it last. Try and sneakily get a sparkling water with lime in it so that people don't notice and you don't feel like a dick. Not that being alcohol free is dicky, because I do it all the time. I have many sober nights out. I'm proud of it. But each to their own. And I wouldn't think less of someone if they didn't want to look like they were having an alcohol free night when really they were. So just try and make that drink last longer. It's a good trick. Nurse one drink for the whole night, and then you don't have to feel weird about it. But you still get to lose weight. Woo! Okay, so the other thing is, if your diet is too restrictive, and it's important not to look at it as a diet as well. You want to really aim for a lifestyle change. But if you're too restrictive with it, you're not going to stick to it. And that's why I do recommend low GL diets, because you're giving yourself, a quarter of your plate in slow burn carbohydrates. You're giving yourself that there. Ketosis can work well, putting your body into ketosis. So that's when you pretty much strip out almost all carbohydrates from your diet, and bearing in mind that even broccoli has a small amount of carbohydrates. So people don't have a very clear picture on what constitutes a carbohydrate. But putting your body into ketosis means you're mostly having low carbohydrate vegetables and meats or protein along with that. I don't recommend it because it's extremely hard to stick to, and most people fail, binge, and then just feel worse about themselves. So you can do it, but I wouldn't really recommend it. There are other options also, like intermittent fasting and the 5-2 diet. And if you want to hear more about that, then post a comment below and I will look at that, because also carb cycling. So if you want to hear more about carb cycling, intermittent fasting, or 5-2 diet, that sort of thing, do put a comment, because that kind of thing will take up its own live. And I want to see, if people are into it or not. If any one of these points interests you, just drop in the comments which one you'd like to hear more about, because there's only so much I can fit into these lives, and I normally cram in too much anyway. So yeah, it's pretty content heavy. So, okay, so we had diet is too restrictive. So don't, be unrealistic. Set aside a cheat meal, like every 6 days or 7 days. Don't make it a whole day. And try not to make it like The Rock's cheat meals, if you've ever seen that. Otherwise, you can have a look on YouTube at what The Rock eats for his cheat meals. It's ridiculous. We're talking like a whole table of food. Please don't do that. Unless you happen to be The Rock, in which case, sir, I love your work. Okay, so what else? We've got not eating enough protein. This is really important. You need protein, and protein, it's not just meat, okay? There are lots of forms of protein. If you're vegetarian and you're watching this, you know what your forms of protein are. Make sure you get it in. If you want to maximize your protein intake, you want to be eating it every 2 hours, okay? And a little bit, palm size, say, every 2 hours, and then you'll absorb more. I don't like eating every 2 hours personally, and if you're going for anti-aging, it's not ideal. But if you have, say, a bodybuilding competition coming up, or you're a boxer and you really need to, have your strength for training, you want to build your muscle, then, it can be a good way to go. I prefer having 3 meals a day and, a small snack in between, or sometimes not even snacking in between. Because when you have a gap between your meals, when you're not snacking, of 5 hours or more, your body can focus on DNA repair. And that's some of the benefits to intermittent fasting as well. Okay, so protein, eat it. You want to be having about a palm size with each meal, depending on what your goals are. You can go further into this. You could have 2 grams of protein per kilo of body weight that you are per day. That's a fair amount. That's what I did when I was getting in shape for a bikini competition that I wound up never doing, because it was on the same day I was my grandmother's 90th, which is obviously more important. But it did work. It got me into insane shape, and I had an 8-pack, so it does work. 2 grams protein per kilo of body weight. I don't know what that is in pounds. You can convert it. And then the next thing we've got is unrealistic expectations. So you might be thinking, oh, I should lose 1 kilo a week. And that works for a lot of people. But for some people, it might just be a few hundred grams. So I really strongly recommend actually not weighing yourself and focusing on the behaviors, because if the behaviors are there, the results will come. And actually, if you're gaining muscle and losing fat, it can appear that your weight is constant. What you can do is just check how your clothes fit. Just notice, is your top looser? Is your belt tighter? Notice things like that. And at the start of an exercise program, it can be good to take a few measurements. Everyone hates it, but it can be useful. Take a before picture. It's a good way to gauge things, much better than weight. Weight is one measure, but it's a pretty rudimentary one. Okay, so make sure that your expectations are realistic and just focus on the behaviors. If you weigh yourself and get discouraged and binge, then Yeah, it's not so great. Now, the other thing is if you're not paying attention to your eating, so be mindful of your eating. Something my mum says, and she's okay with me using this as well. It's like you've got to take responsibility that this is your hand and it's the thing that's putting the food into your mouth. So, as much as there could be other people around with food, there can be food on the table, food in the office, lots of temptation, people inviting you to have food with them, wanting to eat out with you, and you don't want to be difficult. You're responsible for what you're eating and be super mindful of it. If you want to have a treat, or I don't like using the word treat, if you want to have something that, say outside plan, just be conscious of the fact that you're doing it. And, I like taking a picture, like take a picture on your phone of your, that's the phone, of what you're eating. I used to do this when I was training more heavily and send it to my trainer. So take a picture of each meal and have a look at the end of the day and see what you're eating, because it can, it can really show you a realistic picture of what's going on. And if you're just kind of letting it fly and thinking it's all going to work itself out, it won't. And being mindful, especially in the first, say, 3 months of a big change, it can really help you to set the habits up for later. So later on, it can be automatic. But initially, really best to pay attention and not let things slide. Okay, next up, we've got, you could have a medical condition, okay? A lot of people have things going on that they just don't realize. You could have syndrome X, you could have insulin resistance. Now, depending on your size and your situation, that can be a very real thing that a lot of people don't realize they've got going on. You could have chronic stress, you could have depression, you could have hypothyroidism, Cushing's syndrome, polycystic ovaries. But another one I want to mention as well is if you've got IBS or a leaky gut. I've been there because I've had it. It messes with your body so much that you can wind up comfort eating, and it inhibits the absorption of nutrients. So your body can wind up kind of starving of nutrients. And because it's starved of nutrients, it's sending the hunger signal, even though you're eating enough. So make sure you eat high density nutrient food, which is also low calorie. So I know it's like people perceive it as boring, but the more vegetables you can cram in there, and I actually love lettuce, which is lucky, but the more high nutrient vegetables you can cram in there, the better. Like fill up on vegetables as much as possible. Prep things, like carrot sticks, celery sticks, cucumber. I love cucumber, lettuce. It's delicious. Cram in lots of that stuff because we do need to eat a lot. It's just that we eat the wrong things. Hello, Holly. Bless you. Yep, you can come back later. That's cool. Bye. So the other thing that I wanted to mention is you might have medication that's messing with you. So if you have type 2 diabetes already and you're on insulin control, it can mess with things. If you're on medication for schizophrenia or antipsychotics, if you're on beta blockers, which is high blood pressure and some heart conditions, if you're on antidepressants, so like SRIs, so serotonin reuptake inhibitors, the pill, corticosteroids. I mean, steroids should be obvious. If you're on steroids, you're going to be bulking up, even if you don't want to, and even if that's for your health condition. Anti-seizure medication can also interfere with your weight loss. So you can try to ask your doctor to change it and talk to him or her about it in case it is interfering with your weight loss. But more than likely, you probably need to stay on it for the time being, and certainly talk to your doctor before you're making any changes at all. And you just have to be wary that it might take you a bit longer because of your situation. And then again, just focus on the behaviors rather than getting too hung up about the actual weight. Because if you wind up weighing the same as before, but your body composition is better, so your muscle is higher and your fat is lower, then you're winning. So do pay attention to the size, pay attention to the belt. And if any of these you'd like to hear more about, then drop something in the comments below just to say which part you'd like to hear more about, so that I can go into more of a deep dive next time around. But otherwise, I'm going to fly. I'm off to a wedding the night before a wedding, which is very, very exciting. So I hope this has been helpful. And if it is, then give me lots of hearts and share it, because the whole point is to help more people. That's why I'm sharing my knowledge for free. So if you like this, if it's helpful, please do share it with people. You never know who can take something out of this, even something small, and it might really help them, because we don't know what we don't know. And unfortunately, we're not taught this stuff in schools. So yeah, share